Welcome to the Draft Professor Podcast Network. This is the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. I would like to remind you of who is bringing you daily draft content. Randall Slifer, Josh Townsend, Jake Robertson, Bill Sparks, Parker Blake, Brock Vieira, Newt Weston, Devin Jackson, David Neese, Jacob Roach, Owen, Jared Zhang, Dean Bruce, Brian Maffey. Without these individuals, we could not bring you daily draft content covering the top 175 players in the NFL draft. Thank you for watching, and we'll be with you in a few seconds.
All right. How we doing, everybody? Thanks for hopping on this morning. It's a beautiful day. Championship day, lots of good football on today. So we get to talk about the big boys on the offensive line, the offensive tackles, the most important position on there. I am with Jacob Roach and Brian Maffey. How are you guys doing today? If you want to introduce yourselves, tell them where they find you.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was like, I don't know. You can find me on X at Roachism13. Cover the draft for the Orange and Brown Report, so you can find all the written work over there at theobr.com.
All right.
Yeah, just my same here, basically on X, just at BMAAFI NFL on there, and I'm also on Blue Sky, and I write for Gridiron Heroics and also for the Cheesehead TV Draft Guide.
All right, and then I'm Randall Slifer. You can find me on Twitter as well at Randall Slifer. And let's start off with a big banger from Oregon. Jacob, if you want to start with Josh Conerly from Oregon.
Josh Conerly is really fun because I feel like he's kind of had a little bit of a roller coaster in like some of the rankings. Because I think he started the year kind of high, like he was one of the summer scouting darlings and things like that. And then I think he kind of had a little bit of a slow start. I think it was a combination of a slow start for him and a good start for some other people. But he's really kind of made a run back, up some draft boards. I know that Todd McShay has talked about Conerly a lot as being his favorite tackle prospect in this class, and he thinks he'll make a push for tackle one, which he's probably one of the first people I've actually heard say that. He's a good athlete. He does a really good job to kind of redirect defensive linemen as they come at him. I think he does a really good job sometimes of kind of riding the arc and just pushing the defender around the edge and past his quarterback. I think he does a really good job on screens and when he climbs to the second level without the athletic ability. Sometimes you see a lot of these guys that move real well, but they get out in space and then they whiff on a lot of things. I don't think you see that a ton with Conerly. I think he's really quick with his feet. He does a good job to mirror some people. The physicality and kind of the play strength is mediocre to me. That's kind of the biggest issue you're looking at there is him I love him as a pass blocker. I'm not there with him as a run blocker. 6'4", 315. I think he could add a little bit of size, but he doesn't have a super lean frame to add a ton to, but the play strength has some major concerns for me if you're going into any kind of power run scheme. I'm not sure Josh Conerly is that guy, but some of that wide zone and some of the outside running and things that make him have to move out in space and then give him the opportunity to block linebackers and defensive backs in those kind of situations. That's where he's going to make money at the next level.
Brian, what did you see over there?
Yeah, some of the same stuff. Like Jacob said, he's really athletic. He moves his really well. He can redirect defenders when they cross his face and stuff like that. I just noticed some technical stuff. At times he'll drop his hands off the snap, and then he sets a good wide base when he in his pass pro. He's got good length. He can get to the second level and block, linebackers and even to the third level sometimes and block defensive backs. Good kick slide. He's going to be a left tackle in the NFL for sure. He keeps his hands inside though when he does engage them. And usually I've noticed he does have some physicality stuff, but when he can lock on the defender, he does a good job of staying on them. But a few technical things also. Another one's kind of get over skis sometimes. And he needs to do a little bit better of a job of dropping his anchor, in pass pro when he's facing like power and stuff like that. He plays on the balls with his feet. He plays to the whistle. I wouldn't say he's a mauler. He's not a guy who's going to play through the whistle, going to bury you, but he plays to the whistle. He handles stunts pretty good. Keeps his legs moving. Of course, driving. Even though he does still lack some strength, and he needs to add some bulk and some strength, of course. And then, so like Randall Jacob said, in the run game, he's not great in the run game, but he does drive to the hips. He keeps his head on a swivel. He looks for work, and he's athletic enough to be used as a puller. And he'll give some ground to power rushers, like we said, and but he does a pretty good job of recovering. And I would like to see him use some more single hand punches. He mostly uses the 2-hand punches. I like to see a little more independent hand uses from him, but other than that, I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think when you're referencing that, to piggyback off there, is I think his hand placement and his grip strength is kind of his weakness there. So when he is pulling and he does lose it to when he has to recover, it's because I don't think he holds on to his defender as much as he should, and that grip strength he needs to improve on. I definitely agree on that. I do think that if he goes to a team that does a lot of pulling, a lot of pin and pulls, and a lot of outside runs, I think that is where it is. Like the Houston Texans could do that with him. Buffalo Bills could do that with him. Cincinnati could do that with him, and things like that. I will say, Oregon does have a good offensive line in general, but to have two pretty efficient running backs in Jordan James and Noah Whittington does commend the tackles in that. And we're going to talk about Cornelius as well, sort of thing. So I am actually pretty closer to who was it? Who was the analyst that just put him at OT1? I'm sorry. Jacob.
It was Todd McShay.
I'm closer to Todd McShay on it. I think he's a good tackle. I think there's a lot of conversations about some tackles in this draft going towards guard and moving towards guard, but he is a steadfast tackle. So I like what I see. I wouldn't be surprised if he slipped into the first round or went into the mid-second, but where are you guys seeing him?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably where he's at. I've had him in the second for a while, but yeah, he's gonna push into the first round, especially in a class that's full of guys at the top that people think are guards.
Right.
And I think as a result, a guy that is definitively a tackle, he'll be higher than you probably think he will be.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Yeah, he's probably gonna go late first, early second. Because like we said, the tackle group is pretty bad. Some guys end up moving inside. So he's one of the best pure tackles on the list. I think I have him at like OT3 right now or something like that. So I think he'll push especially once he works out.
All right, yeah, we're pretty much on the same page, and there's pretty much offensive tackle vacancies in the NFL right now. So like NFL teams are already looking for tackles. All right, let's move on to the the other side of the tackle for Oregon, and Ajani Cornelius. And Jacob, I'll have you start with him as well.
Over in the 6'5", 310, 315, somewhere in that range. I like his length. I think he's got long arms, as clearly you can see by him in this photo. It's sometimes you don't think about arm length that much, like in terms of what it physically looks like when they have real long arms. I think he's kind of a little bit different on the other side, whereas I think he's got play strength as kind of one of his calling cards. I think with that length and strength and some of the physicality, I think his hands improved quite a bit this year. Just kind of hand placement, hand usage. That was kind of a big knock for me coming out of summer scouting. I think he's looked a lot better. I think he's still got a little bit of a ways to go in that sense, but I think it's one of those things where if you watch him week one or you watch him against Ohio State and then you watch him against Michigan, for example, I think he looked different in terms of what he was doing there. He is definitely the Brian, you talked about the lack of it on the other side in terms of like mauler killer instinct. I think Cornelius has that. Like I think if he locks up to you, he wants to put you in the dirt. He wants to put you down in the ground and keep you down there. I think he always looks for work. for whatever reason, a rusher doesn't come at him, whatever they're running, and he ends up being without an assignment, he's going to kind of find it. I think sometimes the pad level is the biggest issue with me. Some of that upright play style issues. I think he kind of goes a little high from time to time, which for a dude with long arms and that kind of power, I want a lower pad level, because if he does that properly, he's got the ability to drive them into the dirt. And you've got some issues with that when you play with that pad level. I don't love his lateral quickness. I don't think it's terrible. But it's just kind of funny because he's truly the other archetype over what they've got with Conerly on the other side. And so it's like if you're looking for a tackle and you're like, well, you just want to watch one team on Championship Saturday where you can see the exact two guys at the same time to figure it out, it's the guys at Oregon.
That's honestly fair. That is honestly fair. Brian, how about you?
It saves you time, right? And having to watch the film over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I agree with some stuff you're saying there about Cornelius. I like his athleticism less. I feel like his legs and his feet are kind of heavy. I think actually there's a good possibility he moves inside to guard. Because I think that his play style kind of fits better there, and then of course his feet work better there. He doesn't have to worry about edge rusher taking the edge on him, because he does sometimes have trouble with controlling that edge with edge rushers. And but I do like his his play style. Of course, in the run game, his physicality. He did improve, like you said, with his technique and stuff like that. I've noticed. I think it was because he was coming from Rhode Island, and he was just basically bigger and stronger than everybody. His technique was kind of eh. I remember summer scouting his film. He had a lot of technical issues that I saw that he still needs to continue to work on it, but it's better this year. What else? And then he was physical. They had long arms, like you said. I think he's probably gonna play inside and then be like a guy who can kick out to right tackle if the injury or whatnot. And he can play some gap scheme. He can be your lead blocker. You probably could pull him in. I wouldn't pull him all the way around, but maybe to the other B gap or something like that. But I think he's I have a early day 3 grade on him.
Yeah, I actually had the same, and that was well said, Brian. When it came to kind of cement feet sometimes and coming off on that right tackle, you'll see it, and it's almost like a quick ghost move, or even just speed in the NFL can beat out his kickback, and then you just lose in that kind of second. I saw that a couple times as well. I do believe him being at Rhode Island and being a 0-star recruit, it is impressive that he became a 4-star transfer, still being in Rhode Island sort of thing. So I commend him for that. And I do think that he should start at guard so he can get his bearing straight in the NFL. And then, if he does great and he is right tackle material, then that's fine. But I would see him as a guard, and then, just have a dual position guy where if the right tackle gets hurt, swing him out and put your depth piece in at guard. I do agree with that. I have met in early day 3. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, that's probably where I'm at, somewhere in early day 3. I will say one thing that I like about it, and you really just touched on it. It's encouraging when you see a guy put his head down and go from a 0-star recruit to a 4-star. That makes you think, hey, this is a guy that I can coach. I can get this guy in my program. He's a day 3 guy, but he's not necessarily going to be a starter right away. But we've seen him take to coaching and hard work before, and that's always a plus for me.
100% agreed. All right, let's kick it over to Trey Zuhn, Texas A&M, and then Brian, I'll have this start with you if that's all right.
Switching it up.
Yeah,
keep it up on our toes. All right, so on Zuhn, he was actually a 3-year starter actually at Texas A&M, which is pretty impressive at a SEC school, but. One of the first thing I noticed is you have here on the graphic, he's listed at 6'7", 315, but he does not look that to me. To me, he looks closer to 6'5", 300 maybe. He's a bit thin. He looks like an add some weight to his frame. It doesn't look like it's a huge frame, but he looks, like I said, closer to maybe 300. And also I noticed you can actually, another one you can kind of see in the picture a little bit, his arms seem a bit short for a tackle. Actually, I think he's going to move inside in the NFL. But, I noticed he's got, you can see it, his experience when you watch him play, because his feet are well coordinated when he moves his feet, when he's in his pass sets and stuff like that. he will fall for some fakes and stuff. I saw a few times on film. He lunged at some fakes and stuff, but for the most part, he was pretty on it. He keeps a wide base, and he does a good job. He does a good job, actually. I've noticed also too of keeping himself between the defender and the quarterback. Like he'll turn his body if the quarterback's moving or the running back even is coming by. He'll kind of turn his body to kind of block him in a way with his body. What else? Resetting his hands. He does a good job. His hands will kind of get wide sometimes, but otherwise they're pretty good. He'll pick up multiple blocks. He'll switch blocks and stuff like that. Stunts and whatnot. And he did show some flashes of being able to use independent hands. That's something I find important when I watch tackles or offensive linemen actually in general, because I know they do that a lot in the NFL. So if the guy can do that, it's a big plus. Of course, they could always learn it, but and I noticed as with his body, his upper body looks a bit thin, so he could use the bulk mostly on his upper body, and then in his core and whatnot. But his overall athleticism, I think, is okay, kind of average NFL athleticism. I've noticed some fast edge rushers and bendy edge rushers were able to get the corner on him and get around him. That's another reason why I think he should move inside the guard. And he'll open up his hips a little bit too soon a few times. I noticed that. But he plays a good balance. He bends the knee. He's not bad in the run game too, so I think that also helped him in moving inside the guard. And then he'll drop his hand sometimes, but yeah, I think he'll be at guard. I have a mid day 3 pick on him.
All right, Jacob. And what did you see out of that?
Yeah, one thing that I really like about some experience. He's had some experience at left tackle as well. So anytime you kind of see a guy that's played some on both sides and it gives you kind of that swing tackle versatility, it's always nice for day 3 guys, because once you start getting to day 3, you're probably going to get those unpolished prospects and guys with just bigger weaknesses, or however you want to call it. So being able to add things like that is always really nice. I'm with you on the high football IQ and stuff the other state defenders are going to try to take advantage of him. I think he's got good straight line speed, but his lateral speed's a little, like, if he's climbing, I think he moves really, really well. When he's kind of going a little bit laterally, I think it's kind of average, which is, I don't know, it's kind of surprising to see something like that. Again, he's got the frame to add the power that he needs. Like, I truly think he can add that, because he wants Mauler. Like, you see is where he's got the Mauler mentality as a run blocker. He just doesn't quite have the power and strength to really execute it. So you just kind of hope he adds some of those things. But yeah, he's a day 3 guy to me, and I do agree. He probably does kick it into guard.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And to piggyback off those as well is, like, in his blocking, I feel like when he's coming on the outside, and correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes he gets lost. Like, he gets to that second level, and then he's kind of got like 2 or 3 guys around him, but he's not blocking. And then he kind of goes into like a box out move. So if the running back's coming around, he hopes that somebody runs into him to adhere kind of to that, to block sort of thing. So when he gets lost, I think he just needs to find his balance. My big knock for him is, I do think, like, watching a lot of his tape, is that his flaws are kind of easily detected on tape. And that could be actually a good thing or a bad thing, because especially if he's going into day 3, then a team that's drafting him has seen his flaws on tape, and they could be like, we're drafting him. We know what you are and who you can be, but we need to fix these things. So it'll be obviously up to him to fix some of those things that he needs to work on and kind of go from there. Like, it's always hard to look at which games you're looking at, but the Notre Dame game, they kind of statistically said was his worst game, but I don't think it was that bad. It was his first week. It was the first game of the season this year. He had a couple pressures, but I think it was just being first game jitters and stuff like that. I do have him in that mid day 3, maybe round 5 guy with good upside moving to guard for sure.
Yeah, one thing I'll say though is PFF, their pass blocking grades are really weird.
They're awful.
Sometimes you'll watch a guy and they'll give a guy like I remember a couple, like last year I was watching a guy and they gave him like a 40 grade in a game, and I watched the game and I was like, it wasn't that bad. Like, he gave a few pressures, but it wasn't that bad. So their grading system's weird sometimes.
It very much is. I never use their grading system. I always just check it, right? So just to see, like, I'm watching this game, what does that say, sort of thing, and then you basically 90% debunk it.
One thing that I love to do with their just like between the pass and run grades is when I'm starting on somebody, I'm going to be like, okay, is this guy a better run blocker or pass blocker? And I'll look at their grades and just be like, oh, based on what they say, he should be a better run blocker. And that way I kind of have an idea of that going in. But then I just use the pressure data is all I like to use on that 100%. Side.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move on to Charles Grant, William and Mary. Who wants to kick this one off? Jacob?
I'll take it because I just wrote about him last week for the Orange and Brown report. Just wanted to kind of another lean guy, 6'4", 300 pounds. You don't overly love that at left tackle. He is a 3-year starter at left tackle, so I really like that aspect of it. Just he's got that experience at that position. Trying to pull up my notes. Yeah, physical. Yeah, you're looking for the physical guy here. I found him. I found the physical guy. Again, probably a guard. He's probably a guard. But the thing about it is, I believe he's played 4 of the 5 positions. Is that? No, I'm thinking of Gray Zabel. Sorry. He's a 3-year starter at left tackle. I already said that. I get him. I get the William and Mary guy and North Dakota State. We will talk about, but I get him mixed up in my head all the time. Really good athlete. I think you mix in terms of trait mentality, you get a little bit of both worlds. You get a guy that knows he can move, knows he's athletic, he can win with that sort of stuff, but he's also a physical mauler. Like he wants to hit you with everything, speed, power. I think he needs to add some size and strength because he's got the mentality, but not enough of the play strength at the next level. You see it in the competition William and Mary's playing. They don't mess with his quarterback. he just does not allow that to happen. It's not often that he will whiff in the open field when he is moving. When he is out there pulling or climbing or whatever it is they're asking him to do, and he's in the open field, I don't see him whiff a ton. Again, add more size and strength, and then I'm really good about it. His pad level, he's another one of those guys that I think just plays straight up. It's kind of interesting because you say he's a very experienced tackle, 3 years at a starter. But my biggest issues is I think he needs to refine some of the technical side of things, which kind of goes with playing for the level of school and competition and probably the level of coaching you're kind of getting at a school like William & Mary. Let me see the leverage battle I think is if he can work. This is the last sentence of his draft profile that I wrote. If Grant works on his pad level and hand placement as a pass protector, he has the skill set to be an impressive offensive lineman in the NFL. So physical tools, athleticism, a little bit of size, a little bit of refinement, probably is a guard. But Brian, you talked about it with Cornelius. Or not Cornelius, yeah, with Cornelius, probably is a guard, but could bump out the tackle if you need him to. And I think that could be the kind of the path that he takes.
Yeah, so with Grant, actually, I kind of I agree with some of the stuff he said, disagree with some of the stuff he said. Yeah. So I actually think he can stay a tackle. I think he's got the athleticism to do it. I know he is not, like you said, he's not the biggest guy. He's listed at 6'4", 300. He looks smaller than that. He looks, we all know how college rosters, they over-exaggerate guys' heights and weights and stuff. So, yeah, he looks closer to like 285-ish, maybe 290. But I think he's has the athleticism to do it. And his arm length looks fine to stay a tackle. Maybe a right tackle, not a left tackle, but the NFL is these days. They're both kind of the same almost anyway sometimes. But yeah, but like I said, he's a smooth mover. He's a good athlete. I even saw him set some 45-degree angles, which I was kind of surprised. You don't see that a lot at the FCS level. It's usually kind of more just basic stuff. Yeah. But kind of like what you said, he comes off the snap way too high. He basically just stands up out of his stance, and I'm just like, yeah, that's not gonna work. Works in the FCS level fine, but like especially the guys he's playing against. But NFL's not gonna work, so he's gonna have to fix that. But you can see when his athleticism, when they pull him a lot because they run a lot, they run the ball a lot. At William & Mary, they do a lot of design quarterback runs and just regular running runs from the running back and whatnot. interesting thing I noticed when sometimes they're pulling him, he's kind of like he goes kind of they're pulling him around. He's going kind of sideways, like he doesn't turn his body to run and then cut up. Like he's running sideways. I'm like, what is he doing? Why is he running sideways? But anyway, that was just something interesting, kind of weird I noticed. But I noticed it, but he has no problem with dealing with power rushers. But of course, again, that's FCS level power rushers.
Yeah.
So I really want to see him in the Senior Bowl, how he handles those FBS level guys. I think they might give him some trouble, but we'll see if he can add some bulk between now and then. But yeah, that's kind of the main thing I noticed with him is his he just needs that bulk, and it needs to improve his technique. Like we said, he basically stands up, and like his but I noticed actually his hand technique was pretty good. He latches on guys pretty good and whatnot. He sets a wide base, and then he mirrors defenders pretty good too. Again, those guys aren't as that athletic, so it's probably not as hard to mirror them, but he still does a good job of it. I'd like to see, of course, some more independent hand usage with him. I didn't see any on that. And then I noticed a few times he'll set his base like too wide. Like you want it wide, but not too wide. But a few times I saw him set his base way too wide. And I was like, that's not good. I feel like actually he fit better in like a zone blocking scheme because his athleticism would fit better there. And then because he has the athleticism to recover and get out in space and stuff like that. But what I can say his at least his body kind of reminds me of it in a way is kind of like a Zach Tom vibe from him, because Zach Tom's not like the biggest guy. He's 6'4", 300 something pounds, but he's like a pretty good right tackle. So I think he gives me some at least size athleticism wise and not play style wise, or skill wise, but like he kind of has that vibe where he's not like the biggest tackle, but like his length is good, athleticism good, and all that stuff. So I think he'll be able to stay there at tackle.
Yeah, I'm more on Brian's side when it comes down to it. I think he does have that kind of. I think he stays at tackle. I think he's really good. I mean, you're right with those 45 degrees and also those pin and pulls that he runs. He just like runs as fast as he can across the line until he can hit somebody, sort of thing. And I'm not sure if it's just because it's FCS that it works every time, but he looks like a bowling ball running through. And you're right. Like I'm curious to see what his combine will be interesting, because if you say like he does kind of look 300 pounds to me, but he's built almost like Bobby Boucher. It's like his shoulders are so large that like when he stands up, he can almost like that's why he stands up on his stance, because like he feels like he can bully that top half leverage, gain that, and then kind of go. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of pressures, but it is FCS. I do think he needs to work on that anchoring, because if a defender does use a power move, he is standing tall, those 2 steps back. He has the speed to recover, but sometimes I think in bigger competition, especially in the Senior Bowl, I think he'll see that, and we'll get to see how he adjusts on that. But I like everything. I think that he's like I'm kind of like I love Charles Grant. I got told about Charles Grant about 2 or 3 months ago, so I'm kind of putting him in that Siobhan Ravel's ECU, Harold Fannin Jr.'s Bowling Green. We almost had Kendall Bowler from Florida A&M, but he decided to transfer to go to a better school. I've got Charles Grant in that bucket of talented FCS players that and HBCUs that can advance and do well in the NFL.
I'm actually very happy to hear both of you disagree with that point, because I like him a lot and I want him to be a tackle. Just from my standpoint, I just wasn't sure about the size. But if you guys are saying that, that's got me feeling really good, because he's on the, we all have my guys list, and Charles Grant's on my list. So and as a Browns fan that needs every offensive lineman humanly possible this year, please, yes.
Definitely. And I love his interviews too. He sounds like a really nice guy, like committed to his team and everything along those lines. And it was good to see his video with Jim Nagy and stuff like that when he got the Senior Bowl. It was a lot of fun. All right. Now we're going to head over to Clemson. Blake Miller, who started every single year there. Let's start with you, Jacob.
Oh, yeah. Blake Miller is one of my favorite true right tackles in this class. I've had a little bit – I don't know if it's like prospect fatigue or what it is with him, because his name's kind of floated around for a while. And so I've kind of been up and down on him a little bit this year. And I think it's more prospect fatigue than like holes in his game or whatever. Like I think sometimes you get a little over, I think it's sometimes I just get a little bit too, whatever.
I hear you. I hear you.
But I got tripped up on my words. I was like, somebody save me.
No, I got you. I know exactly what you mean.
Like, what's going on? I think I really like his hands. I think they're kind of sometimes a little bit inconsistent in terms of playing with leverage at 6'6", but I do think that's kind of a good. I think he does a good job to get under defensive linemen's pads, try to get under pad level and things like that. And when you're 6'6", and I think he's got the arm length, I think I could really, I really like kind of how he fires out of his stance. I love to watch him drive people back, probably as much as he likes to drive people back as a run blocker. I probably am right there with him. I love to watch the way he kind of does that. I think he does a good job with the angle blocks too, kind of walling defenders off from wherever the ball carrier is, which is something you've got to have in a tackle. And I think even more so in a right tackle, if you run that wide zone scheme and trying to wall things off and allowing that edge to be open for some of your explosive running backs trying to get on the outside, I think Blake Miller can kind of be that guy. I think he does a pretty good job of I think his contact balance, I know we normally talk about contact balance more with like running backs and wide receivers and things, but if you bull rush him and knock him kind of off base and he kind of stumbles a little bit, I think he can recover from it pretty quickly. Like, which is nice, 315, 6'6" on your right side. You're like, he'll take on those big guys. And I think when he latches onto people, that's it. You're not disengaging from Blake Miller. I think if he latches onto you in the run game, I think, that's over for you. I think that oh no, that's something else. That's it. Sorry. I thought I had more notes and then I realized that was the other guy's notes. I don't want to sound like an idiot.
Yeah. 4-star starter. How much can you talk about him? Right. How about you, Brian?
Yeah. Yeah, I like him too. Like he's, obviously, of course, some stuff I don't like, but I mean, as far as a true tackle in this weak tackle class, he definitely is a tackle for sure. He's got some pretty impressive athleticism for a guy at 6'6", 315. He's pretty. I think you could even play him some left tackle, or at least train him to be a swing tackle. He's got good length too. And now we were just talking about with Grant. Mirroring pass rushers, he's really good at mirroring pass rushers. He's got his feet move so smoothly. He's just able to mirror. He's playing. Obviously FBS competition, so it's NFL type players. He's light on his feet, and I noticed even Clemson, they use him a lot as a puller, which obviously shows his athleticism. But I noticed a few times his he's not always in sync. Like his upper body and his lower body are not always completely in sync. So it's a little off. I think it just needs to work on just kind of smoothing that out. Sometimes I notice his technique can be a little wonky. Like he's kind of like, I'm like, what is he doing? But he gets it done. So it's like, okay, well, he got it done. So that's kind of also important. Kind of a little Mark Tauscher there, if you guys know who that is. But yeah, he's 315, but he looks like he can still pack on some weight. So if he actually is a legit 315, he could probably pack on another 5-10 pounds at least. And he probably needs it because I'd see one of his biggest flaws is dealing with power. He struggles with power. He gives up a lot of ground, when guys power him. And even kind of going off of that too, in the run game, he's not great in the run game either. He's not terrible, but he's just there. He doesn't get much movement in the run game. But he strikes. He just gets good strikes. He strikes their chest. And he plays hard and continues to fight, even when he's losing. There's times I've seen him. You can see he's losing, but he's fighting his butt off to try and prevent that guy from getting his quarterback, or getting to the running back or whatever. But he's pretty patient generally. I've noticed he's pretty patient pass protection. I've seen him bite a couple times on some fakes, but otherwise pretty good on that. Let's see, look at my notes. Yeah, I did. Like I said, it gives up the power guys who get knocked around by the power rushers. Sometimes I notice his grip strength is a little lacking. He can use some stronger hands, which I think has to do with the bulk and the strength and stuff like that. And then, he gets good knee bend, like I said, and then and he handles stunts well, and he stays alert. And that's just the one thing that I think, going back to the bulk and strength thing. Corey Kinnon recently was talking about him. And so a comment he said actually kind of made me think of something, was that you've been in this big major program for 3 years already, and he's still having issues with getting on bulk. So you kind of wonder, is he not put on the bulk? Is he not able to translate his weight room strength to the field? Like, so that's something I'd be curious to find out. Is it just because something that's not connecting? Yes, it's something at the Clemson program is just not connecting for him, not working for him, or is it just that's what he is, and he's not going to get any stronger, not going to get any bulk. So that's like I want to see. It's going to be interesting to see with him whether he can get that or improve that.
Brian, I got a question for you on that. So him being, 6'6", 315, and Clemson normally, in that backfield is kind of quick and agility running backs. Do you think they wanted him to stay at 315 for those pin and pulls and for those outside zones for that speed? Because you're right. You're kind of looking at like a gain one and a lose one. Because as Jacob mentioned, he's really good. Like those bullies, when he gets bullied and he loses, he can recover on that sometimes, and maybe adding that weight that he loses some of that recovery, but is able to anchor better. Yeah. But is Clemson just using him for his kind of quickness and his experience to make sure that he can work in that run game that way and then still be able to pass protect to his above average ability? Or do you think that what you kind of referenced was more of the issue?
I don't know. Like, it's hard to say without being there, what
Right.
I mean? Not being in those rooms and with the coaches and stuff. So that's obviously something the NFL teams will probably know by now and be able to find out. Us, we have no access to that, obviously. So, yeah. But I think it's just the bulk. I don't think the coaches are asking him to stay at 315 and not gain any weight.
Yeah.
I think it's just, it's like I said, I think it's either he's kind of quote unquote maxed out, or he, it's just something's not connecting with their strength program and him building his body up and stuff like that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I did like his game. I like how consistently he started. It's hard for a true freshman to start Clemson. So that's commendable for sure. And to be honest, watching the games, like his Georgia game, he had some pretty bad reps, but overall it wasn't too bad. And I kind of liked his Georgia game over his Wake Forest game, where he had a little bit more mental mistakes in the Wake Forest game. So it was kind of good to see how well he did against that Georgia front seven. And then, at least have some difficulties in the Wake Forest. But the Georgia game was overall good with some kind of bad reps. I have him as like that end of round 4. Where do you guys have him?
Yeah, late. I think he could sneak late day 2, maybe. Kind of. I think he's going to be around 100, like somewhere around pick 100 or after. So kind of could sneak into the back end of day 2. But yeah, he's probably more of a day 3 guy.
Yeah, probably because, especially since it's a weak class, like we said, we've talked about, he's probably an early day 3 guy.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, let's move on. We're going on to Earnest Greene III, Georgia. Jacob, I'll let you start with this one as well.
All right, 6'4", 320. Pretty. I think his athleticism kind of sticks out, especially the short area quickness, firing off the ball. I think that's kind of where the thing that. You've seen some versatility. You can play along those lines. He's moved around. I believe they moved him to tackle this year because of injury, if I remember correctly. I think he was supposed to play center. I can't remember. I could be thinking of someone else. It's okay. You can tell me because there's too many damn people.
Because he was left tackle last year too. So
yeah,
but
what am I thinking? Oh well.
So Wilson, their center right now, Wilson's pretty good too. So.
Yeah.
But
we've seen. I think overall length is good with Earnest Greene. I think I like the overall length and stuff from him. Kind of. I think one note. I really like the way he gets after it in the run game. I don't know if you want to call it like an active run game blocker or physical blocker. I'm not sure exactly how you want to like label it, but I just like his mentality. As a run blocker, sometimes I wish he could get a little bit more bend at the waist. I think sometimes is kind of some issues that I think he's been better this year in this term, but like getting depth in his pass set. I've had some issues with how much depth he gets as a pass set. I think in terms of like physical talent at the position, he's got plenty of it. Like I think there's plenty of physical talent there. I think his balance and some of his footwork stuff could use some improvement. That's kind of getting off balance, missing on some blocks and things of that nature, especially for a guy that has the athleticism that he does. That is kind of a red flag for me that I don't overly love. What the goodness gracious. A video popping up on my thing, and I was trying to figure out what in the world is going on, man. Listen, I'm sorry for everybody who watching this. I'm all over the place on this Saturday. But yeah, no, if you're looking for a toolsy guy, I think Earnest Greene's got plenty of it. He's not going to be the first tackle off the board or anything of that nature, but I think the athleticism and kind of mentality and length, I think, are there for him.
Yeah, definitely, Brian.
Yeah. Interesting. The thing is, doesn't get mentioned too much about him is he's actually still pretty young. He's just a redshirt sophomore. But he's in his 2-year starter at the left tackle. I did notice that some athletic edge rushers can work his outside shoulder, can get past his outside shoulder and dip and all that stuff on him. But he's, like we said, he's listed at 6'4", 320. He's a big dude. He's got really good grip strength. His length looks pretty good. Even though he's that big, I noticed he will give up some ground to power rushers sometimes. I think it's more of just a technical issue. And he needs to learn how to do better at just planting at his heels and just anchoring his butt down basically, and just locking those guys down, because he's got the bulk and the size and strength to handle those guys.
Yeah.
I noticed he will get a little bit unbalanced sometimes. His shoulders will go over his feet, and he'll kind of like duck his head and kind of loses his balance and stuff like that. Which obviously NFL edge rushers can take advantage of that. But for his size, he has pretty good feet. He has a thick lower half. Has a good base. Will get a little wide sometimes, but otherwise pretty good. Like I said, his shoulders gets over his feet and he kind of ducks his head, loses balance. I noticed he will fall off some blocks, which will also leave him susceptible to. I noticed he was susceptible to some swim and chop moves, but he has good spatial awareness when he's in pass pro. He stays alert. He's always looking for work, that type of stuff. But he does need to work at resetting his hands. I noticed a couple times he got his hands, a few times, talking too fast. A few times he got his hands knocked away and he had trouble resetting. So, something he's going to need to work on. But I noticed also he's pretty good at torquing his body, getting different angles to maintain his block as defender. I thought that was pretty nice. And then, but he does need to work on his hands as far as he grabs outside a lot of times. And, NFL, they're going to call that holding. The rushers, they'll twist and turn and make it look like you're holding him and look at the call. So, that'll get taken advantage of. So he needs and then also independent hand. You should see some more work of that. I didn't really see much of that. But his, I noticed like when they moved him around, like pulled him aside, his straight line speed was kind of kind of middling. I don't know if I don't think I would use him as a puller in the NFL. And then for example, I saw a number of times him having trouble getting out in front of screens and stuff like that when they would pull him for those. And then I think honestly his skill set and his size and athleticism fits better inside in the NFL. I think he's going to be a guard in the NFL. And honestly, I think he's probably going to go back for one more year.
Yeah, I actually fully agree. I think he's a really good guard, and I think he will take one more year to develop. Last year when he took the left tackle position, that was a really good offensive line in general, and so he got to learn off that. And then coming in this year, Georgia has been good, but they've had a really hard schedule, so he has had good, tough competition this year, and I think he can move that into next one more year of college. I mean, his tape was really good. I agree with everything you guys said. His Alabama tape was good. His Texas game, they pretty much put him on an island in that Texas game. And then you look at kind of like the Kentucky game. The Kentucky had some big boys on those front four, and he kind of got burned a good amount on that Kentucky game. And that's where his flaws definitely came off. Could have been just a one bad game sort of thing, but easy pressures, lost a good amount of reps. And he did have a bad hit on Carson Beck, where I believe it was both him and the running back's fault, but they both came in on the defensive tackle and let the edge run clean on Carson Beck, and Carson Beck got mollywopped on that one. So I would like to see him kind of have that mentality to be able to know to chip off that defensive tackle and slip towards the edge sort of thing. But I'll put the running back a little bit at fault as well. But I do think that he goes into back to Georgia next year, works on it, and then I think he could be a really good guard coming into 2026.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. We got a couple more. We're going to go to Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. Jacob, if you want to kick that off.
Now, this is the guy that's played multiple positions. I'm all over the place. I am bound to get it right. A broke clock right 2 times a day, baby. He's got the length, 6'6", 305 pounds. Plenty of that. One thing that's really nice about it is the lower half mobility with his size. You don't see that often. We talked about a lot of guys with pad levels and going straight up. Zabel, I don't think has that issue. I think he has it on some reps. There's some consistency issues with it. But if you're talking about lower half mobility and pad level for a 6'6" guy, this is what you're showing these other guys. Like, this is how you should play. I think I really like his hands. I think his initial kind of punch to a defender, I think he does a really good job of taking it to them, letting them know what's going to happen, that he's going to dictate this rep. And I think he just moves laterally really well while he's redirecting rushers. I think he just does a great job where it's like he understands, hey, I'm 6'6", 305. Like, I'm big, I'm long, he's got power, but he understands I'm not, DeJuan Jones, 360 pounds. Like, he understands that there's going to be some power rushers that are going to be bigger and stronger than him. And he does not try to just be like, well, I'm going to try to beat your – no, he understands that. He will move with them laterally, and he'll just drive them past the quarterback. He has no problem with doing that sort of thing. I really love when he climbs and kind of works inside out, trying to wall some things out and try to open up in the second level, just trying to open up some things and steal edges. Does a really great job just overall movement. We talk about the hip fluidity and just kind of the things that he does in that sense. I'm not sure where I want to put him. He could probably even play center if you're getting a little frisky if you want to. I mean, he's played pretty much every other position. I've almost always been a fail out to in, start at tackle, move to guard if it doesn't work. I would love some more play strength and power, just because at 305 pounds, I prefer him to be closer to 315, probably somewhere in that range. But if my team drafted him and said he was a tackle, I don't think I would have any issue because of the athleticism. I think the athleticism is there. If my team drafted him and put him at guard, I wouldn't have any problem with it, because I think he's got the movement skills and enough power. And the arm length is not – for a guy that has length, I don't think the arm length is exactly where you want it to be, and that might be why you move him to guard. His outside shoulder, sometimes I think he has a hard time protecting his outside shoulder, and then you get around him pretty quickly, and that is a reason you may kick him inside. But I'm really looking forward to some of these guys going to the Senior Bowl and seeing what that looks like against a level of competition. And Zabel's probably a guy that I'm going to watch quickly, but I do love the tools.
Yeah, actually I had trouble finding my notes on him earlier, but I watched much. I remember pretty much most of them. So, so actually I have confirmed measurements on Zabel. He's 6'5". Sorry, I'm looking. I'm 6'5.5", 304, with 32-inch arms, or 32.25-inch arms. Okay. So, but yeah, but anyway, what's that?
32.25.
32.25. Yeah.
Okay.
But Zabel is just like, he's like your North Dakota State offensive lineman that comes out like every year. He's played tackle, he's played guard. He's long, but his for some reason, the arms are always short. So they always end up moving inside. I think he's going to move inside, of course. Some people have talked about him possibly playing center. I mean, possibly. Why not? Try it out. But yeah, he's just kind of to me, at least, your kind of traditional North Dakota State offensive lineman. His skill and technique is pretty advanced for an FCS dude. Not an elite athlete, but he's good enough. He's definitely decent NFL level athlete. Can play different all their positions like we talked about. Kind of like what Jacob said, like his outside shoulder, he has trouble with that. So that's also another reason why I think he's going to move inside. Obviously we all know the NDS North Dakota State, they run the ball like 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. So he's a good run blocker. Could improve as a pass blocker, some of the technique and stuff. But I think that's just getting more reps since they don't do that in North Dakota State. Get him with a good O-line coach and he'll be fine. I have like day 3 grade on him, and I think he'll just be a solid interior offensive lineman that'll come in, start for like 5 to 8 years and just be a solid dude.
I have the splits pulled up because I had it somewhere in my notes. North Dakota State has a 64-36 run pass split.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was higher, but yeah.
And then in 2023, they averaged 237 yards rushing per game. So just pumping them out. But I mean, I agree. I mean, the one flaw that I kind of saw in him was recovery. Sometimes because he does play tall. He's tall, a little slim. So if he gets in a bull rush and then he takes those 2 steps back where he initially loses it, it's hard for him to get back lower and then recover and try and get that. And I feel like that's where in the NFL it could kind of demeanor him in a little bit, but I think he can learn from that. Watching him as a right tackle, he actually, because obviously, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, I saw a lot of Spencer Brown in him, coming from Northern Iowa sort of thing. Tall, thin, very athletic. I think his combine will be really good. And when he plays right tackle, if you put him on an island, he can typically win, but then his technique is what kind of makes him lose in the NFL. But then he ended up learning it and becoming a very good right tackle, just got paid and sort of things. So I could see him doing well at right tackle if somebody wants to try, just like you said, Brian. The arms do concern me now that you said that they're 32 and a quarter while I wrote this up.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were that short.
Yeah, that's short for a tackle. So I think he kind of has to move inside. But I think that he would be a good guard, and I do agree. Give him somebody like Aaron Cromer or Frank Polak from Cincy and let him kind of work on that inside.
Yep.
All right, and for the grand finale of Kelvin Banks from Texas, Jacob, how much you got on him?
Oh, yeah, this is OT1.
Yeah.
So for me, and I've debated multiple times between him and a guy we'll talk about in the future at OT1. I am pretty firmly in the Kelvin Banks as a tackle club. I know some people are going to say that he needs to move into guard. And do I see aspects of the game where I'm like, okay, yeah, I could see him needing to move to guard? Sure. I can see it. I get the vision. I understand. But I think the 6'4", 320 in terms of overall size and height, check both of those boxes. I like a 6'4" tackle. I like a 320-pound tackle. I think the thing that stands out for me when he's a pass protector is his hands. I think his hand usage and placement is as refined as you're going to get in this class. I think that's his biggest calling card, I think, is his technique. I think his really smooth footwork as a pass protector, gets off of the line of scrimmage and into his sets. I think he gets depth really well. And he's just really under control of all of his movement as a pass protector, getting into his sets and doing what he has proper timing, pad level, those sorts of things. That I think he's got good speed and movement skills. I don't know if he's going to be the best puller or climber out of the class and stuff. I think he's got good. He has good close speed, stuff like that. I'm not putting him on freaky level athlete or anything like that kind of level, but I'm also not going to be like, oh, he's a bad athlete. I think he's an NFL athlete, I think, is where he's at. And so it's not impossible to see him doing some of those athletic feats, but it's probably not where you want to put him. Sometimes I have some issues with the way he keeps people out of his frame. I think he's got violent hands. I think he's got quick hands. But if he doesn't get them and get under control quickly, he'll let defenders into his frame and dictate a rep a little bit more than I like for my best tackle. Obviously, more often than not, that doesn't happen, but it happens enough that like people are like, he gets controlled here and there, sometimes in the biggest moments for a guy that has the physical tools and refinement. Sometimes I think he gets himself a little bit off balance with his feet when he's trying to move as a run blocker. But, overall in the pass sets, I don't think it's an issue. But for me, this is my favorite prospect. I think he's a tackle. I think there were some issues at the beginning of the year. I think he's cleaned up a lot of those issues. I know he's a game time decision today for the SEC championship. I was really hoping that he plays in that game, goes up against Georgia. I don't know if you're sitting here and you're the Browns at 8. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Every chance I can say Kelvin Banks at 8, I'm going to do it just to get it out there into that ether. Even though my latest mock drafts have been Mason Graham, but still,
Can't go wrong with either.
No, you can't go wrong with Mason Graham.
Nah. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah. So, on Banks, he's kind of my OT2 right now. I still have Will Campbell as my OT1 right now. I know the length issues and stuff like that people talk about. I'm still not sure where I'm at with that as far as what he's going to do. I think he's going to decide. But anyway, but with Banks, I've noticed sometimes he still is not always. It just seems like he's not always showing what he's supposed to be doing, what his assignment is. Sometimes he looks off the snaps. He's like looks like he takes like a half second to be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this, or oh yeah, watch this guy or go to this guy, whatever it is. But it's gotten better. But I know there's still a few reps a game where you're like, it looks like he's kind of just sitting there. You're like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
But I noticed some technical flaws, of course. I think he still needs some work. He'll open the gate sometimes too soon, give pass rushers the edge. Especially like we all know that Georgia game, he had trouble that game. Well, both of the tackles had trouble that game. But yeah, he's got a big, wide frame, like we said, 6'4", 320, long arms. It's difficult sometimes for pass rushers to get around him just because of his pure size. He shows patience at times. He can cut block. He's got good size and strength. To be a bully in the run game. Sometimes he'll kind of slip off blocks. His block sustain could be better. Maybe that's a grip strength issue, or maybe it's a technique issue. I'm not sure. But yeah, he looks good when he first gets in there and engages with the defender. Just some more technical issues. Just getting his heads over his skis. I've seen some defenders use that. I think it was in the Georgia game. I saw it too, where they used the push pull on him and just loop out right past him. Yeah. But when his technique is right, and he anchors, he can hold up. I've to multiple guys. He can hold up to those Georgia guys. He just as long as his technique's right, he drops an anchor, all that stuff. He's good. He can get second level and block on the second level. What else? I said the anchor already. Could bend his knees a little bit more. Does okay at it, but could do a little better at it. Will bend his waist sometimes. And sometimes I see him trying to get outside of his frame when he's trying to block a guy, which obviously is going to throw him off balance. So I'd like to see him probably stay in his frame a little bit more. But he's been athletic enough. They pulled him and thrown him into the B gap or the C gap on the other side and all that stuff. So, he can move for sure. He's got good hand placement off the snap. He doesn't drop his hands, keeps his hands up nice and high and tight. He's shown independent hand usage, which I like that too. But yeah, I'm still not sure about some people have talked about too, is he could end up being a guard at the next level. I'm just not sure. But again, it's just that thing, just throw him there at tackle. If you can do it, cool. If you can't, oh well, you got a really good guard on your hands. So, you can't lose either way.
Yeah, no, I very much agree. I definitely see him as a tackle. I do see I feel like he's bendy. So when he's losing on power, his front half is bending back, and that's where he starts to lose the leverage for sure. But I do like it. I really like how he can handle disguise blitzes and stunts. He can help pass off, and still, without kind of losing a step, stay fluid and picking up that extra stunt or blocker. And I do think he is kind of a bruiser in the run game. I don't know if you guys saw, but I posted on that Georgia game when he was moved on to the second level. And Dalen Everett is going to be a really good guy drafted in the NFL draft next year as a DB. Yep. And he pancaked Dalen Everett. It was very impressive, and it was NFL quality, get up quality sort of thing as a pancake. So it was fun to see. So I like him as a tackle. I think he'll succeed as a tackle, but there is a small chance that he moves to guard, and I got him as my tackle 1 as well. I think the Seahawks would probably be a good fit for him.
Ooh, I do like. It's like you guys have said. Like, I think he's a much more refined, like in the technical stuff as a pass protector. But you have seen it in every aspect of the game. He has shown you flashes and plays as a, like you just said, Randall. Like, he's shown it and he'll pancake you in the open field if you're not careful. So it's like some of that stuff is just consistency.
Well, definitely. All right. Well, that is our offensive tackles or offensive linemen, because, we might have some move to guard. But I appreciate you guys. Again, it's Jacob and Brian Maffey. You can find us all on Twitter or X. We appreciate you coming out. And any crazy predictions for Championship Saturday?
I think Georgia wins by 2 scores.
Ooh, okay. That was a good take. Brian?
Nothing I can think of offhand. I just want to see some good games, and looking forward to the playoffs. And all these teams are kind of like middling. They're all kind of the same. They've all kind of beaten each other. It's kind of interesting year.
It will be an interesting year. Yeah, yesterday with UNLV and Boise State, he broke 200 yards. So just give it to him.
Well, I mean, of course, he was going to break 200. UNLV wasn't going to be able to stop him. So
yeah.
But even Army beat Tulane like pretty bad. I was like, eesh.
Seriously, for real. But hey, thanks for getting up in the morning watching us, and we will check you later, and we appreciate you all. Thanks so much.
Yep.
How does he?
What?
Does he know he didn't stop the recording?
No, I don't think he does. It looks like it's still recording.
I don't know how to stop it. I'll have to send him a text.
Awkward.
I'll just text him real quick. I just sent him a message in the group chat. Like,
thank you for watching this episode of the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by Draft Professor. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like the podcast on YouTube. Please follow us on Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. Thank you again for watching. On behalf of everybody that put this podcast together, we appreciate our followers very, very much, and we look forward to seeing you on a future podcast.